What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video, and it is Monday, so it's time for our usually scheduled mock draft Monday. And as you have read in the title, it is a 12-team standard from the 11th pick. Now, this is going to be done on ESPN. I wanted it to be done on Fantasy Football Calculator. Unfortunately, the standard drafts over there aren't filling up. I could have done a PPR one. Those ones were filling up, so any of you guys who wanted to do PPR mock drafts, you can do them on Fantasy Football Calculator. Just don't expect the standard ones to be filling up, at least not often. Now, I think that's a trend that you're going to see as the fantasy community, transition more away from standard and over to PPR leagues. Those of you that haven't done it, consider doing it. It's much better. It makes the positions more equal. As we know, in standard, running backs are far weighted than wide receivers. It's very important to get a top tier running back over a top tier wide receiver. And in PPR, even though it's still the same, it's not as heavily weighted in one side or the other. Now, we also have a giveaway going, so if you haven't entered that, make sure to enter today. We are giving away an 8x10 Martavis Bryant signed photograph. Comes with the certificate of authenticity. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to the channel and make sure to follow both Nick and I on Twitter, and those Twitter handles will be in the description box below. So make sure to check those out and enter to win. If you guys think it's a crapshoot and it's not worth entering, think again. We haven't had a ton of response on this giveaway, and we're going to be picking the winner on July 2nd. So I'm excited for it. You guys should be too. And just follow us on Twitter and subscribe to the channel. That's all you have to do. On the 11th pick, my strategy heading into this is to go RB early. I really want to go RB. The only way I would change that is if I get Odell Beckham falling to me. I would definitely take him. He has double-digit touchdown upside, almost locked into his pick. As for Kareem Hunt, I'm going to be avoiding him. I'd love to get Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, that kind of combo. Dalvin Cook, Melvin Gordon, that kind of combination. That's what I'm going to be looking to get, or any mix. So anything with Saquon Barkley, anything with Melvin Gordon, anything with Dalvin Cook, and anything with Leonard Fournette in it. Someone like Fournette is going to be much more valuable in standard than he is in PPR, just due to the lack of receptions he receives, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in standard. He's going to get all the red zone opportunities for the offense, and he is going to get a massive workload. Can his body handle the workload? That's to be determined. He did deal with some injuries last season. I would expect no different this year. We might be doing a video. I know I'm going to be writing an article on it, but a lot of people out there, they overvalue playing a full 16 game season. Someone like Diggs, for instance, he gets kind of a knock for playing 13, 14 games. But if you ask me, I could care less, because it's all about not the wide receiver himself, but it's about the wide receiver slot that you're filling in. That wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 slot. I'm talking the one that you have to choose who to start and who to put in there versus your bench. If you add up all the points that you're getting from Diggs, put that in that wide receiver slot, and then while those weeks that he's out, put in some sort of bench receiver to make up the difference. Someone like Mohamed Sanu, Emmanuel Sanders, and then add up the production you've gained in that wide receiver slot, divide that out by the 16 games, and you're still going to be having, a wide receiver 2, a very solid wide receiver 2. I think Stephon Diggs was wide receiver 13 in points per game, and he only played in 13 or 14 games. So a lot of people were down on him, but that's more than enough for me to be happy. As long as he's available in the playoffs, that's all I can really ask for. But that's kind of a tangent here. It is my pick, and Odell Beckham seems to be the player who I'm going to be getting. I'm going to combo him with Melvin Gordon or Dalvin Cook. Devontae Adams. So unless Team Smith, this is a gamble. Unless Team Smith goes Melvin Gordon and Dalvin Cook, then I'm going to be screwed, because the last thing I want is Odell Beckham and Davante Adams. I don't want to start off 2 wide receivers. You know, I don't want to start off 2 wide receivers so bad, just because this is a mock draft. And normally I would take Odell Beckham because he's the best player available. But just because this is a mock draft, I'm going to go RB and see what my receivers finish up as. Because I doubt he would go take both RBs. Who knows? Maybe he is going to take Dalvin Cook. If he does take Dalvin Cook, that'll leave me one of these receivers to choose from. I'll probably go Michael Thomas, even though Michael Thomas is more PPR. He's the one that I just think has the most upside. And he did take Michael Thomas, so good for him. How do you take Michael Thomas? How do you take Michael Thomas over Odell Beckham Jr.? That makes no sense. This guy must think this is a PPR league or something. Oh man, I really want to go Odell Beckham. It's just hurting me. I'm going to pretend like Odell Beckham was taken, because obviously, and don't give me hate in the comment section, I know Odell Beckham is the pick here. He's basically, and you're talking to one of the biggest Odell Beckham, you know, I'm backing Odell Beckham in every video that I mention him. I have him over Hopkins in standard and PPR. So sue me here. I'm going Dalvin Cook just because I think it's more realistic to show you guys what would really happen in your standard drafts. You're gonna go RB, and if you don't, it's absolutely silly. We've shown you the numbers in previous videos, and we've shown you that running backs are worth more than receivers, just flat out. They're worth more than receivers, and in standard that goes double. So going running back is the best possible chance that you have to set yourself up for success. They have a higher bust rate, but someone like Gordon and Cook, I think they're on the safer side. Cook is coming back from an injury, but he more than makes up for that in his efficiency and production. Gordon, on the other hand, has increased his efficiency over the past 3 years. That has been something he has struggled with, but his involvement in the offense and both of these running backs being on good offenses make them pretty safe for the ability to get touchdowns, so on and so forth. So I'm starting to wonder, did Odell Beckham get hurt? Well, I haven't heard anything yet. Maybe after I'm done this video and I go on Twitter, I'll find that out. Make sure to subscribe or to follow us on Twitter. I'll let you know on that once I find the news. Now, we're going to be going over to the stat of the day. Now, the winner of Friday's stat of the day was Sanatan Saraf. The question was, which wide receiver had the most interceptions when being targeted? The answer was Demaryius Thomas. Now, I think besides Sanatan Saraf, there was only one other person to get it. So this one was definitely on the harder side of the questions that we've had thus far. So congratulations, Sanatan Saraf did not only get this right, this is now his second stat of the day that he has had right. So we're going to make sure to tally him up for that. So congratulations. As for today's stat of the day, since we're doing standard, and since we did a wide receiver on Friday and a quarterback on Thursday, we're going to circle over to a running back. And since this is standard, this is going to be a better standard running back. And this running back is a little undervalued this year, we believe. And he was 11th in breakaway percentage and 4th in elusiveness rating. Who was this mid-round running back who is a good target in standard? Let us know in the comments section down below. Get yourself on the board. If you haven't got one right yet, don't be afraid to comment. First person to get it is going to get the points, and we'll let you know in tomorrow's video. So I need a wide receiver. T.Y. Hilton, we've taken the stance. I'm avoiding him. I'm not going to draft him. I just don't think it's fair to draft him and then tell you guys the same story. Oh, he's good if he's in, you know, it's good if Luck's back. He's bad if he's not back. I mean, that just doesn't make for a good explanation. I'm going to go for Doug Baldwin if possible. Let's see some other wide receivers. Doug Baldwin. Stephon Diggs is good. Larry Fitzgerald, way better in PPR. Decently good in standard. Let's see here. We could take him. He could retire mid-season though. Let's be real. Andy Reid's gone. Carson Palmer's gone. What is he playing for? This team goes 2-6. I mean, if I was in his shoes, I'd just retire too. I mean, what do you have to prove? You're not going to playoffs. You're putting your body in more harm's way, and it's not like you're chasing this, not this Hall of Fame goal, but like this milestone in your career. Everything that he's accomplished is pretty much set in stone, and he doesn't have to prove anything. Now, if this team does have the ability to make a run in the playoffs, by all means, that's a good position for him to be in at this stage of his career, make one last final run at it. And I will say that the quarterbacks that are on the roster right now are suiting his skill set better than ever. You have Sam Bradford, who's the king of these short, high completion throws, which is exactly where Larry Fitzgerald makes up most of his targets. Josh Rosen is also on the safer side when it comes to his pass selection. So, wouldn't mind getting Larry Fitzgerald. Sucks as a wide receiver 1, but that's the world we live in. The worst case scenario for me, Stephon Diggs got taken. I think that's an excellent pick here. Don't be afraid to take Stephon Diggs early. He's a stud. He has the potential to break out into a top 10, top 5 wide receiver. In points per game, he's already been on the cusp of that. So don't be afraid to take Stephon Diggs. And like I said, it's kind of funny I brought that up because Stephon Diggs was the exact example of the injury thing I was talking about. But I digress. Doug Baldwin and Larry Fitzgerald. Hopefully I get one of those. And my third wide receiver that I would choose is Josh Gordon. It would not feel good as my wide receiver 1, but I do think that he has the upside, and the reports that we're getting from training camp are just glowing. So it is going to be Larry Fitzgerald though. I love Jordan Howard here. See, I would be much happier if I did go Odell Beckham. I think that's cheating because Odell Beckham would never fall that far. But I would love to have Odell Beckham, Dalvin Cook, or Melvin Gordon, and then Jordan Howard as my RB2 in standard. That would be much better. Heck, why don't I go wide receiver 0? I should go Jordan Howard in the flex. We did say running backs are more valuable. So, like another pick, go Jordan Howard. And heck, I still got Larry Fitzgerald coming back to me. Wow, good call. That's a gutsy call. But hey, I got it. So far the teams: Melvin Gordon, Dalvin Cook, Larry Fitzgerald, and Jordan Howard. One thing to know is there's so many mid-round wide receivers, and in standard, wide receivers are a dime a dozen because basically they're going to be hit or miss, all of them. They're going to be touchdown dependent, and even your studs are going to bust. Larry Fitzgerald, is 6 for 84 games, 8.4 points. Someone like Juju Smith-Schuster, he's the guy you want to target. Amari Cooper, he's the guy you want to target in standard. Marvin Jones, he's a guy you want to target. Players you don't want to target: Michael Crabtree. How far are these Baltimore Ravens going to be moving the ball down the field? How often are they going to be moving the ball down the field? Not often. Sammy Watkins, he's good in standard. Pierre Garçon, you don't want him. How many red zone opportunities is he going to get? The team will get plenty, but how many will Pierre Garçon get? Probably not that many. Alshon Jeffrey's a good one. Demaryius Thomas, same thing. He actually does have some upside compared to previous seasons because since Peyton Manning in 2013, he hasn't had anybody really good. Even Manning ended up sucking. Then you move to Brock Osweiler, and then to Trevor Siemian and that whole rodeo, Paxton Lynch, all that garbage. No thanks. So now Case Keenum, although he's a journeyman, I'd say he's moving into becoming this, this era's Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh McCown. He's proven to be good and put up some fantasy points for the teams that he's on. If you actually look back, he was even good for St. Louis under Jeff Fisher, which is really hard to believe. He was better than even Nick Foles was under Jeff Fisher. And Nick Foles was reigning Super Bowl MVP, who, threw plenty of touchdowns in the playoffs and was super good. So to be questioning Case Keenum's upside, or maybe upside's the wrong word, but to be questioning him being an upgrade at the position is foolish. He's clearly an upgrade at the position. So someone like Sanders is going to be coming in at a value, and he should be someone that you're considering. Now the only problem is I'm talking about a lot of players I like, and obviously some that I don't. And you'll notice that there's just plenty of options in the mid rounds at wide receiver. You don't have that at running back. You have Royce Freeman, Marshawn Lynch, Ronald Jones, all guys that I like. But after that, in standard, you have nobody. You have Dion Lewis, Sony Michel, both PPR guys. Michel clearly, I'd say the better pick of the two. Duke Johnson, can't even touch him. He did just get his extension, but it's completely meaningless because he's just going to be catching a few passes and he's going to not even produce at the level he did last season. Marlon Mack, on the other hand, that's a good standard pick. If you guys are in this range and you need a running back, let's say you got 2-3 wide receivers in your first 4 picks, Marlon Mack's a guy that could provide some upside if he actually gains the starting duties, which he is the front runner to do so. Lamar Miller, I don't see him being a bell cow for the entire season, and he's better in PPR because D'Onta Foreman, he's not a pass catcher, okay? So even if D'Onta Foreman does come in and he takes, a significant workload away from Miller, he comes in, he's healthy, and Miller looks like crap, like realistically he's been the past few years, Miller's still going to be having those receiving back duties. So it will take some of the ceiling away from Foreman. And it could render both backs useless. But I don't think Lamar Miller's a guy that you would even want to touch in standard. Now, that's just an overview of some of the mid-round guys. I'm going to go back. Just to kind of recap, I do think Marshawn Lynch, Amari Cooper, and Royce Freeman in this range were really good picks. So just giving those guys credit. Julian Edelman, yeah, we have the news that he's suspended 4 games. That doesn't mean too much to me. I know Chris Hogan's going to end up being more of a value. Chris Hogan is going to be basically a stud for the first 4 games. I'm going to make my pick and then I'll touch back on it. I think I'm going to go for Robert Woods or Watkins. I'm going to go Sammy Watkins here. So basically, oh wow, I gotta pick again. Yeah, that's right, I forgot. I'm on these back-to-back picks. So I'm not touching Crabtree or Garcon. I like Sanders, but I'm gonna go Corey Davis here. He has the actual upside of being the main target leader. If you are unsure why we like Corey Davis so much, take a look at our breakout video. Corey Davis is listed in there. Let's see. Like Devin Funchess, Chris Hogan, I said earlier. I think I'm actually going to go for Chris Hogan. Corey Davis is really good. Take a look at him in our other video. But basically, there's so many mid-round guys I like, and so many that you also can't touch in standard. I would be kind of eyeballing at tight end at this point in the draft. This would be about the area where I would be interested in taking someone like Jimmy Graham. Maybe I used to be Hunter Henry, but now that he's gone, you can't really consider it too much. To rehash on why I like the Sammy Watkins pick so much. Round 5, round 6, round 4. These are the highest bust rate rounds that you have. So someone like Sammy Watkins, yes, he has a high bust rate, but you're thinking he's coming into a defense that's really poor, right? Or at least compared to previous seasons. So the Chiefs defense is not going to be good. Let's see where they have them in the fantasy rankings. Probably high. No, not even high. Normally they'd be high. Where are they? Okay, so they're way down here. Normally Chiefs have been like top 5, top 10 at the worst for like the past 4 or 5 seasons, and they have performed really well. They've lost almost all of their talent, and the remaining talents that's there is just completely old, and they're very slow. They've had a lot of injuries, and most of the players that are there aren't even the same type of player that they once were. So basically, the Chiefs are going to have a bad defense, and unlike Alex Smith was able to be a game manager. He's going to be turning the ball over a lot more than Alex Smith was, regardless of how good you think Alex Smith was or wasn't. So you have a defense that's getting worse. You have a quarterback that's going to be, hurting the defense even more with his play style. At least that's what we project to happen at this point. I mean, unless he comes out and looks like Deshaun Watson. But all those signs point to plenty of air yards for these wide receivers. It's a little bit more negative for someone like Kareem Hunt, but it's a little bit more positive. This game script we play out in our head. It's a little bit more positive for a player like Sammy Watkins, who we know has wide receiver 1 potential. Tyreek Hill's also, a good option, but you're just paying half the price for Sammy Watkins. Literally half the price. What I got Watkins in the 6th round versus Tyreek Hill in the 2nd or 3rd round. I think it's a no-brainer to me. I would be considering Marlon Mack. I would also consider Jamal Williams, not in this range, but just some guys I like after that I would be targeting. Marlon Mack, Jamal Williams, Kerryon Johnson. I talked about Foreman. He would be on the list if he fell to me, but right now with the injury, I don't think I'd touch him. Aaron Jones is going to be my biggest target right now. So that's just to give names. For those of you just listening, there's a lot of guys I'm not talking about. Duke Johnson, Isaiah Crowell, Chris Thompson, Tevin Coleman, Rex Burkhead, Nick Chubb, James White, Theo Riddick. Those are all guys who I wouldn't target that are all going around those guys I just mentioned. Devin Funchess is a guy I really love. Better in PPR leagues. We know Cam Newton does not throw much more than 20 to 25 touchdowns in a season. He did obviously have that 30 plus touchdown season when he was like MVP caliber, but let's be real, he's not having another MVP like season. That seemed more like an outlier than anything else. Realistically, I still think Funchess does have the upside to score touchdowns because he is, besides Greg Olsen, he's the biggest bodied wide receiver that they have, and he already had a multi-touchdown game last season, so it's possible for him. They may be few and far between, but he should fight to be the lead target in this offense. Between him, Olsen, and McCaffrey, that should make up 80% of the target market share, and if he can get 20-25% of that, I'll be more than happy. So I got Devin Funchess. So I'm gonna just peek at tight ends. I really like Jordan Reed here. I'm not going to take him though, just because I'm stubborn and I don't want to take a tight end early and I can get Kyle Rudolph 2 rounds later. So let's see quarterback. I really love Cousins. What round is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 8th round pick. I'm not going to touch him here. Probably get Will Fuller here just for the touchdown upside. He's a guy who we haven't really talked too much about. Is Will Fuller. He is more than likely not going to be a factor. He's more than likely going to be a bench player, but just from what you saw, he had a touchdown, one every freaking 2 receptions, and you have to give him some credit for that. Everyone loves Deshaun Watson. Everyone loves DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun Watson, everyone's talking about him like he is going to be the #1 fantasy quarterback to end the season, and while we did see him on a points per game basis do that last season, who was that because? Everyone likes to say Hopkins, but realistically, Hopkins was the #1 fantasy receiver when Deshaun Watson was not on the field. He was still the #1 fantasy receiver. And do you want to know what? The quarterbacks that took over for Deshaun Watson were not even fantasy relevant. Why? Because Watson did it with his legs, yes. With Hopkins, yes. But the third thing he did was Will Fuller. Will Fuller was a touchdown machine. And in standard, taking a shot on a guy like that late, it's not a bad gig. I think my wide receiver core is as safe as it gets. I do need to start looking at a couple more running backs. And I already told you Aaron Jones. I love him a lot, and he's probably going to be my next pick. Even though it's a little bit of a reach, I'm still going to make sure to target him. As for the quarterback position, I could honestly care less. I do think Drew Brees, we did a stat of the day, and Drew Brees was the winner. It was, who was top 5 in adjusted completion percentage, deep passing, but yet and a couple others, and he was also 25th in time in pocket. Everyone seems to love the idea that Drew Brees has completely fallen off, and that he's aging, and that this team is going to be a running team first. And yeah, while the splits aren't going to be as heavy as they were when the defense completely sucked in, the past 3, 4, or 5 years with Drew Brees, he's still going to make the most of every pass attempt that he has. What was a big outlier last season was that the amount of red zone attempts that he converted into touchdowns was extremely low. Now, you can, and I'm talking a significant percentage, you can expect that to actually change this coming year. And the main beneficiary of that is going to be Michael Thomas, and also Drew Brees' fantasy production is going to increase from there. And I think if his ADP will climb as we get closer to the actual draft. But I still think almost wherever he lands, you're going to be getting a value. Will I have him on any of my teams? Probably not, because I love this late round value in players like Marcus Mariota. I like it in Jameis Winston. I like it in, even Blake Bortles. He has a killer first 4 weeks. Derek Carr, I think he has some sleeper potential. And I mean, let's talk about Eli Manning. He has a top 5 tight end, basically, and ADP is like ranked 6th. Top 5 tight end, top 5 wide receiver in Odell, and a top 5 receiving running back. And then everyone's pretty decently high on Sterling Shepard, but yet Eli Manning's buried. In order for that ranking to even make sense, you have to expect that he's going to get either injured or benched. And we saw what happened when he got benched last season. That lasted all of 1 game. And we all also know that he never gets injured. He's basically an Iron Man on the football field. It's stuff like that you have to add up. 2 plus 2 usually equals 4. And when you're adding Sterling Shepard, Odell Beckham, Saquon Barkley, and Evan Engram, and then you're getting Eli Manning undrafted, you have to start questioning that. So you can't play both sides. You can't be high on all of those players, but you can't be low on Eli Manning. You have to pick. Be low on those players, or only high on a couple of them, and then be low on Eli Manning, or be high on all those players and be high on Eli Manning. I tend to be relatively high on Eli Manning. I'm high on Odell. I think Evan Engram's going to be decent. I still don't think he's a good draft day value. And I think Barkley's going to be great. I think Sterling Shepard's going to be whatever. He's going to be, PPR guy for the most part. Nothing fantasy relevant, but a spot start on a bye week. And I think that makes Eli Manning borderline QB1. So realistically, I think in 2 QB leagues, he'd probably be the quarterback that I would be targeting the most. So, going Aaron Jones here. I mean, I could go. This is just what I'm going to show you. I could get Jamal Williams, who's ranked so much higher than Aaron Jones, but I'm getting Aaron Jones by a mile because I seriously have faith in Aaron Jones as a player way over Jamal Williams. I like Rex Burkhead actually with the Edelman news. I like him a lot more than I did before. He could be lining up in the slot a little bit. I just think his time to shine will be a little too limited, and for that I don't think that the upside's there to draft him, not even this late. But I do like him a little bit more with that news. I think Doug Martin is a great late round pick. I might be able to get him next round, so I'm not going to touch him. Let's take a look at some receivers or tight end. Okay, I'm gonna get Tyler Eifert. Now this could be a wasted pick, easily a wasted pick, but he is a touchdown machine. And when it comes to Tyler Eifert, he's on a 1-year deal, and we've seen what 1-year deals do to players. It made Alshon Jeffrey, the king of soft tissue injuries, turn into a guy playing with a torn shoulder, torn rotator cuff, whatever. Like, this dude would run to the television to turn it off and say he pulled something and be missing games here and there and not practicing, just completely lazy. And then what did it get him? It got him a new team. And maybe that's what he wanted. Maybe this was the long con, but what the result was you put him on a team and you give him a 1-year prove it deal, and you say this is how you're going to make your money. You either play and perform, or you don't and you get injured and you fizzle out of the league. And some guys take it, and for the most part they do. These 1-year prove it deals, they really do their thing, and Tyler Eifert got one of those. And honestly, do I really care too much if I have to drop him? Not one bit, because there's so many late round tight ends that I like. George Kittle, and these guys are going to be going undrafted. Most people aren't drafting 2 tight ends, but George Kittle, Benjamin Watson, Jared Cook, Vance McDonald. I love Cameron Brate. He's going undrafted in a lot of leagues too. So it's like all these guys are going to be on the waiver wire, and I can play the matchups and stream. And I've always been a big proponent of streaming tight ends and quarterbacks. I've never once been screwed by them. I don't think I've ever been in a league where I either missed the playoffs or busted out of the playoffs, and the main glaring reason was, dang it, I didn't stream quarterback or tight end correctly. Like, that was my weakest position. No, it was either, if it's cases like that did happen, it was either like an injury to another position or something else. Because the good thing with streaming that is, you're always safe because there's always an option available. You lose your RB1, you're basically screwed. You can't keep up with those good teams. Streaming quarterbacks and streaming tight ends has never been the pitfall for my teams. Let's see where I'm at. I still got a few picks left. How long is this video going for? Okay, just 31 minutes. Not too bad. We still got some time, guys. We still got some time. My pick's coming up. I do want to get my hands on Doug Martin. I do want to... I'm not going to draft the second tight end for the reasons I said below. I do want to own Martavis Bryant, and I do want to own... Let's see. Oh no, it looks like he got drafted. Where is he? Sorry guys, looking for a player here. I can't find him. Well, I am going to get Martavis Bryant for sure. Let's see who else. I'm not touching Paul Richardson. Jordan Matthews, I didn't talk about him. He's interesting in PPR leagues because he's more than likely going to be the one taking over the slot snaps. He's going to be taking over the slot snaps while Julian Edelman's out. So in PPR, that gives him some value. I'm going to go Doug Martin, and I'm going to go Martavis Bryant. Let's see. Doug Martin. How many bench spots do I have? Okay, so I have one more bench spot. I still need a quarterback. Almost forgot. Like Marcus Mariota. Not touching Dak Prescott this year. If anyone can do it, I will say, do it with nothing. I will say Dak Prescott has the chance to do it. Cole Beasley has some potential in PPR leagues. We saw him have a little 6-game stretch a couple years back of fantasy relevance. And now you have to know that Dez Bryant's out and Jason Witten's out. Jason Witten was that guy in the middle of the field, kind of that safety valve. I think that's what Cole Beasley can be. Not high on Matt Ryan this year, although what you get with Matt Ryan is somebody who's going to produce no matter what. You don't have the type of upside to be that top 5 anymore. I think that was proven to be an outlier based on his career, but you're also not going to be getting a guy who's going to completely bust. I'm just not too sold on Steve Sarkisian. I know that Kyle Shanahan struggled in his first year. Steve Sarkisian struggled in his first year, but just some of the things that they were doing last season just was completely baffling, and I'm not sure that he's ready for the job. I actually expected them to get a new offensive coordinator this offseason. They didn't do that. They were ranked 17th in the league in the offense, and I don't think that's acceptable, just going from where they were. I'd love to take Marcus Mariota. I wouldn't draft Eli Manning. let me see. I'm pretty sure Winston's gone. James Winston. No, Winston's here. So I'm going to take Winston for sure. I'm still just looking to see. Okay. Bruno Cobb went round 6. In PPR, I think that's going to be a thing. I'm not even kidding. The more and more I research Randall Cobb, the more and more that I like him. I know that sounds weird because he's Cobb. He hasn't been fantasy relevant in 20 years. But he's looking better and better. Let's see. I'm going to get one more running back and then close it out with my quarterback. So out of these guys, Latavius Murray is not a bad pick, but I have Dalvin Cook. I'm not doing that. Latavius Murray is not a bad pick because, you know, an injury to Dalvin Cook could happen. Could Latavius Murray get some goal line work? It could happen. Realistically, it's going to be a wasted pick with Dalvin Cook, but I'm not saying that I would hate the pick as a late round flyer because all these guys basically are handcuffs. Not one of these guys you have has a chance of actually breaking out. I didn't grab Marlon Mack, and Nyheim Hines isn't bad. And oh, Corey Clement all day. I'm gonna get Corey Clement, but really quickly, Charles Sims has been a guy I have been still high on in PPR leagues, and I think you guys should give him a consideration as well. He's gonna most likely go undrafted, and if he does go undrafted, I can pretty much say that in the first 3 weeks he's probably going to be taken off there. He's another guy that falls into that category of gets a 1-year contract. Charles Sims gets a 1-year prove-it deal. They're gonna use him. They're not just going to draft or to sign him to a 1-year deal if they're not going to give him the opportunity to actually play and prove himself. Winston. Keep in mind when drafting. Oh, Winston did get drafted. That wasn't by me, was it? No. Okay. Keep in mind that Winston does have a pretty bad schedule. I'm gonna go Jimmy G. Jimmy G should not have fallen that far. Jameis Winston does have a pretty tough opening schedule. Don't worry too much. If anything, get him off waivers later on. It's not a big deal. And then you have my kicker and defense. I wouldn't mind pairing Robbie Gould with Jimmy G. I think this team is going to be able to move the ball very effectively. And we saw last season, not projecting this to happen, because the 49ers had a lot of offensive weapons missing by the time Jimmy G was the QB. Pierre Garçon was gone. They didn't have the new rookie wide receiver. They have a lot more weapons than they had last season. And I will say, and George Kittle also missed time. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. But they had trouble in the red zone. I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. But when it was, Robbie Gould was lights out. I think I would be happy pairing my quarterback with kicker. I like to do that. I did it last year a lot with Jake Elliott and Carson Wentz. I did it a lot with Matt Prater and Matthew Stafford. You want to make sure that they're on an offense that moves the ball, but not an offense that is really efficient when it comes to putting points on the board, like a Chris Boswell and Will Lutz. These guys, most oftentimes when they do get in the red zone, they do end up scoring. You do have the games where that's not the case, but more often than not, that is kind of the final result. I'm not going to get any of these kickers, but kicker's not really important. Let's see what defenses are available. So, guys, Saints defense is going to be my sleeper defense. It's not really a sleeper. I think they're still going top 10, top 12, but I think they have the ability to actually finish in the top 5 this year. I mean, you think about it. They were already cusp top 8, top 10 last year. Now they bring in some new weapons, and they basically the offense is running as efficiently as possible. They're going to get up 2 to 3 scores on a team, forcing them to throw. And you're throwing into Marcus Lattimore and Patrick Robinson. No thanks. As for some late round guys, Lions defense shows some potential. Steelers fading. Browns fading. Titans not that bad. They did have one of the league leaders in interceptions last year. I could see them taking a step ahead. Packers defense I like late. Buccaneers is okay. Giants defense also, guys. They fall into that category too. They should be able to put up points on people. And you forget in 2015 they were a top 8 defense, top 6 defense maybe even. And that was when Janoris Jenkins was almost defensive player of the year. Their defense is going to be moving to a 3-4 defense. So it is going to look much different. But remember, they do have Snacks, who is one of the best run-stopping defensive linemen in the entire league. So if you just go, if all the defenses are taken, a lot of people are taking 2 defenses. Giants is not a bad pick. I'm going to go Saints, though. Putting all my money on Saints this year. Let's see. Just so I can give you guys some analysis. Let's see who I would pick. I don't know. Mason Crosby's good. I gave you the reason for the Minnesota kicker last time with, Kirk Cousins' historical inefficiencies in the red zone. But I think I would go for... Let's see here. I think I'm going to go for Cody Parkey on Chicago. Why? Because this offense is supposed to be improved. You have Allen Robinson coming in. You have Trey Burton coming in. You have, Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard all looking to move the chains. And from the sounds of it, that all looks like it could be a realistic possibility. You have Mitchell Trubisky, who people are high on actually moving the ball, but the only thing that you can't really expect from Mitchell Trubisky is to just be super efficient in the red zone. You can't really ask too much of that type of stuff from him because, again, yeah, he had no weapons last year, and this year he's going to have loads of weapons, but it's going to be his first time having all these weapons. And even though he's going to be able to move the ball more than likely, and this offense is going to be moving, no one projects it to be top 10, and nobody projects them to put points on the board every time they reach the red zone. And what that is going to do ultimately is probably give them the ability to make these field goals. Their defense is much improved, so these games aren't going to be 2-3 touchdown. They're not going to be in 2-3 touchdown deficits to where they're going to be forced to need to throw a touchdown, and that's going to bode well for the kicker, because we know that in games where teams are being blown out, they opt to go for it on 4th down as opposed to kick it, and you can have a whole fourth quarter sometimes where your kicker doesn't even see the field, which can really be detrimental to your kicker. So for those reasons, I don't even know his name. Cody Parkey. He was on the Eagles and the Dolphins. He's a pretty good kicker. He struggles sometimes in big game moments, but he can make it. But regardless, whoever the kicker is for Chicago, ultimately by the time the season starts, I think could have some sleeper potential for the reasons below. And I know it's a kicker. We can't really give too much analysis on it, nor is there really too much to factor into a kicker. But I'm looking for anything that can give me an explanation for why I should take him, and those reasons alone are enough for me. Now, let's go through the roster real quick. Let's start with the running backs. Running backs I'm actually very happy with. I have Melvin Gordon, Dalvin Cook, Jordan Howard. Those should, throughout the season, fill out my RB1, RB2, and flex. Now, all 3 of those, I would be very disappointed if at least Dalvin Cook and Melvin Gordon weren't in the top 10. Jordan Howard, on the other hand, remember this is standard. In PPR, Jordan Howard could be 20th. I think that's a reasonable finish for Jordan Howard. But in standard, he does get a bump up. All red zone opportunities will go to Jordan Howard. I could see him finishing somewhere in the neighborhood of, RB15, RB16. So to have him there, if that happens, is going to be great in the flex, because remember, running backs score more than wide receivers. So those are my projected starters, but I also have Aaron Jones. Now, Aaron Jones is my first sleeper running back. That means, if I'm not drafting him to start, but there is a path for him to become a top 20 player at the position, in which case that's going to help me if any of these running backs get injured. We know Melvin Gordon has had some injuries in his past, and Dalvin Cook just is coming back from a torn ACL. You want to have somewhat of a safety net in case any of those players bust. We only need to start 2 running backs, so we do have some, room for error on that field, but Aaron Jones would be the first man up if anything were to happen to any of my running backs, and he does have a path of being successful based on, what his skill set is and where he fits into the offense this year. Doug Martin, on the other hand, this is a shot in the dark. We clearly expect Lynch to take lead back duties, but he has been getting glowing reviews and we have seen him be a top producer. I don't think it's a wasted pick this late in the draft just because of that small percentage chance that he does see the field for a decent amount of time. So for those reasons, he is kind of a late round flyer. Same with Corey Clement. He's the number 2 running back on one of the best offenses in the leagues. They love to use him in the red zone, and he's very versatile. So that means he can see the field more often than some of these other guys. You have some touches being left on the table from LeGarrette Blount exiting. So overall, he just has a lot of signs for upside, and you get him basically for free. I would be targeting him in both standard and PPR as a late round flyer, and the good thing about him being taken late is you don't need to start him. Just keep him on your bench, watch how he performs, and if he does turn into something, you'll have him there waiting for you. Now, as for wide receivers, we have Larry Fitzgerald, Sammy Watkins, Chris Hogan, Devin Funchess, Will Fuller. So that's a lot of names I just listed off. Larry Fitzgerald, better in PPR, could retire halfway through this season, so red flags there. He does play better at home than on the road, but he has been consistent wide receiver 1 for like 2 or 3 years. Even in standard, he's been back in wide receiver 1 category. Both of the quarterbacks on that team suit his skill sets very well, that being high completion throws, short passes. So he really does have, at least he's set up for this year, a successful season, and there's no signs besides age and the risk of retiring pointing to him just completely falling off. Sammy Watkins, he does have a new quarterback as well, and this guy is probably going to sling it. You have the combination of a poor defense with a more than likely turnover prone quarterback, providing more air yards for the team as a whole. Sammy Watkins is going to be fighting to be second or third on this team in targets, which could be a fruitful role, and if any injuries were to happen, or just flat out Patrick Mahomes chooses him as his favorite target, which is a possibility with any new quarterback, he could provide some value right there. But until then, for the first 4 weeks, I'll be starting Chris Hogan in the absence of Julian Edelman. While I don't think Hogan is going to have a significant bump in production season long, I do think you have to admit that over the first 4 weeks, he is going to be more heavily targeted without Edelman. Devin Funchess, he's kind of the safest out of all of these players that I picked. His role in the offense, he's more than likely going to lead this team in targets and have some touchdown upside depending on how well Cam Newton plays. Now, complete flyer would be Will Fuller. We saw what he could do with the limited opportunity share, and if he comes back and is anything like he was last season, he's going to produce value, like immense value for where I took him. Martavis Bryant, same thing. He has a path to being a top 20 wide receiver, and other than that, I will drop him with no problem whatsoever. As for quarterback and tight end, I have Tyler Eifert. This guy's probably going to end up being dropped. Who knows if he can remain healthy this year, but a 1-year prove-it deal does kind of point in the direction of a chance. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I think that's just immense value. I wouldn't suspect him to actually fall in drafts like that. But where I got him, I know I was planning on taking Jameis Winston. As much as I love Jameis Winston, I still don't think you can take him over Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G is a much safer pick. Well, then we have Saints defense and Cody Parkey as the kicker. Not much to talk about there. Their defense and a kicker. Every team needs one, and these are mine. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button. If you're new, subscribe. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to be eligible for the giveaway. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.